I'm going to say this really gently. Some of you are calling it processing, but what you're actually doing is practicing your pain repeatedly. And each time you do it, your brain gets better and more skilled at finding more of it. I'm talking about something called co-rumination, and if you haven't heard of this, it's one of the most overlooked reasons that people stay stuck after emotional abuse. It's not just rumination where you're in your head thinking about things. It's co-rumination, which is when you're talking about your pain with other people over and over again who also validate it, who feed it, who unknowingly help it grow, maybe by sharing their own experiences and stories. And co-rumination can be something that will absolutely keep you stuck. And I'm here to help you through that. So today on this episode, I'm going to tell you about the dangers of co-rumination and also some strategies to help pull you out of it. If you're in resistance to this, that's normal, and I'm going to address that also. So welcome back to the Be a Better You podcast. I am your host and subconscious reprogramming expert, Allison K. Dagny. All right, so let's talk about this healing habit. I'm calling it a healing habit because a lot of people think it is healing. That is secretly hurting you. Okay, I want to make a distinction here because there is a difference between talking about your feelings and experiences to someone who understands, to get your feelings out, to process your emotions. Like, there's something to be said for that. Co-rumination is different. This is an excessive problem talking situation with other people. And what it looks like is repeating your same story over and over again. Maybe you not only co-ruminate with one person, but maybe you circle to a lot of different people. You call one friend and another friend and another friend and another friend. Maybe a family member, maybe you talk to it with your adult children. Maybe you are talking about it on Facebook groups, whatever that might be, right? And what happens is it just circles your pain without creating movement. So you're in a loop. It may be reanalyzing every text, word, facial expression, or event with other people. Okay, so there's a difference between just ruminating in your own mind versus if you bring these texts to other people and you're like, well, what do you think this means? Or what do you think that was going on here, right? Venting for long periods without any action, without any reframing. Venting is fine. Like, venting serves a purpose. So I don't want you to think or get it twisted that I'm saying you shouldn't do that. But we have to put time limits on these things, right? It's the excessive talking about it, the excessive circling the same topics over and over again without any problem solving or resolution or plan. It could be getting together mainly to resolve your emotional issues, right? If you're getting together with people to go have fun versus you're getting together with people to get emotional support and relive the issue and talk about it again. Maybe you're using support as a way to stay emotionally fused to the pain. Now, if you've listened to my podcast before, there are reasons that we do this. So there's no shame in this. I just want to bring it to your awareness because if you're participating in co-rumination with friends, with family members, even coaches, even therapists, this can delay your healing. This can cause you to stay stuck. And I want you to be the best version of you that you can and help you out of those loops. And you might even mistake validation as transformation. So if other people are validating your experience and what you went through, you could even start to think that you're transforming or think that you're healing, but really you're not. And talking about the pain is not the problem. Getting stuck in these emotional rehearsals over and over again is the problem, okay? So healthy processing actually helps you move through the pain to get to the other side. But co-rumination keeps you moving in circles. And that distinction is really, really important to know. So I'm going to explain to you why this feels so good and why we sometimes get trapped in like an addiction cycle of this. And then I'm going to go through the mental health impacts and how this can actually harm you, as well as physically, and how your reticular activating system is going to keep seeing whatever you feed it. So I'm going to go through those kinds of things for you as well. And I want you to know this stuff because if you're someone who ruminates already and you're overthinking a lot and you're spending a lot of time in your mind, if you've self-isolated, that might be all you do. But if you have people or you're searching for people, you may end up in a co-rumination circle, and then you continue this loop, which will keep you from being able to move forward in your healing. I'm also going to give you some clues and tips to look out for in case a therapist you're working with or a coach that you're working with is slipping into co-rumination with you, because I know that this happens to people where either the coach has experienced something similar or the therapist, and then it ends up being, a vent session back and forth, and you're just on a merry-go-round and you're really not going anywhere. And then finally, I'll give you some tips on how to stop. So stay through the end. Okay, so this is going to be one of those episodes that if you're not driving or you aren't on a walk, that you might want to grab a piece of paper and a pen and jot something down, or maybe just in your notes app on your phone. So why does co-rumination feel so good? Because co-rumination does give you something real, right? It gives you feelings of connection with others. It helps you feel validated in your experience and knowing what you experienced was real, because many of us had been gaslit, so we might doubt ourselves. It fills in this like relief for you. So you get some temporary relief, you get to express your emotions, and that feels really good. Like discharging emotions feels really good. This feeling of being seen or being heard, and knowing that you're not crazy because someone else is there to support you. And it really increases a sense of closeness and bonding with other people. So for many people, especially after emotional abuse, that can feel really intoxicating. It can feel really, really good, because when you've been dismissed, when you've been denied affection, love, minimized, invalidated, blamed, lied to, manipulated, gaslit, all the things, right? Being deeply validated can feel like oxygen when you have had none. So the issue is not that validation is bad. It isn't. The issue is when it becomes a substitute for healing, and that's what we don't want. And that's how you get trapped. So the addiction cycle of co-rumination is you feel distress. This is how the cycle starts. You feel distress. You reach out for someone to talk to about it. They validate you, and you feel that relief, right? It's temporary, but you do feel it. And your brain links relief to more talking about the problem, right? So it steps in and it goes, oh, well, when I was feeling bad, I talked to somebody and I felt better, so I need to talk more. Then I'm going to feel better more. Okay, so this is how the addiction cycle would work. The emotional charge returns and you talk about it again. And then the loop strengthens, right? And then you're seeking that again and again and again. And that's why some people feel almost compelled to bringing up the same issue repeatedly. And it's because they have a brain that has been programmed, and it learned that pain plus venting plus validation gives you some regulation, gives you some relief. It's temporary, but that's how addiction works, right? It's the same way if you reach for a cigarette and it gives you relief. If you reach for alcohol and it gives you relief. If you check your phone for notifications and it gives you relief. Whatever that might be, right? This has nothing to do with, somebody who just needs attention or, whatever. Like, that's not what this is about. This is because your brain was in a cycle, addiction cycle, and it learned that if I'm feeling bad and I vent and I get validation, then I feel better. But here's the thing, temporary regulation is not a resolution. It's not a solution to your problem. It's helpful in the moment, but it's not real healing. It's like an emotional painkiller, right? Like temporary, gives you what you need temporarily, but doesn't last and it ends up wearing off. So co-rumination is like a drug for some people. It's like a quick hit of relief that keeps that, underlying dependency alive. Now, there are some definite impacts to this that most people don't realize, and this is why I want to shed some light on this. it increases rumination for you personally. So even if you already are ruminating and thinking about things and thinking about your pain and wondering why and what if, and what if things had been different, like all of those things, the more you revisit that, the more familiar, the more dominant it becomes in the mind. So when you're doing it with other people, you're going to go home and do it more by yourself. So if you're somebody who wants to stop thinking about the pain and wants to stop thinking about your ex and wants to have some clarity in your brain, then if you're not only ruminating on your own, but co-ruminating with others, you're just strengthening the rumination. It increases it. The other impact that it has is it will, in a lot of cases, strengthen victim identity, victimhood, victim mentality, however you want to say that. And I don't mean this like in a blaming way. It's neurological in your brain. So if every conversation you're having is reinforcing that, what happened to me, thinking about what happened to me, how horrible it was, how badly I was treated, how unfairly I was treated, how broken that I feel, right? How impossible it is to heal or whatever, right? Then your mind starts to say, oh, okay, well, this is who I am. This is your identity. You're a victim. And then that will continue. And that will become like the deep roots that anchor into the ground about who you become. And then it can often amplify your anxiety. It makes anxiety worse. So if you're somebody who already has anxiety, rumination and co-rumination can amplify your anxiety because your brain will start scanning for more evidence. It's looking for more signs. It's looking for more meaning. It's looking for more threats. And that's going to create more anxiety. So if you're like, oh my gosh, yes, I do talk about my problems with people, or I'm ruminating with others, or on social media, or watching things that remind me of the abuse or whatever, right, to get my validation and all the things. Again, there's no shame in this. It's just how the brain works, right? But that's going to increase your anxiety because you're going to see more of those things. It's going to be part of your reality that you're creating, okay? It can also worsen depression. So on the flip side, because when you're focusing on the pain without any movement or without any action, you're creating feelings of helplessness, hopelessness, and for a lot of people, exhaustion, emotional exhaustion specifically, because you're just continually repeating these things over and over and over with others. And then it keeps that wound fresh, right? Like instead of it being a memory of the past and far in the past, the event stays in your nervous system right now. Because you're telling your brain, this is important. I need to be thinking about this. I need to be talking about it. I need to be sharing with everybody. And again, I have to reiterate, you can talk about it. You can write a book about it, like I did. You can go to meetings and share your stories and get that validation. But at some point, we've got to cut it off. At some point, it has to be enough. Because if not, then all of these negative impacts are going to happen. It can also increase obsession, right? If you are, you had experienced emotional abuse, betrayal, breakups, whatever, right? You might be checking their social media all the time, driving by their house, not just thinking about them, but that when you are co-ruminating about these things with other people and they say, oh yeah, my ex did this, or this happened here and I saw his car there and blah, 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 blah. Your brain starts filling in the gaps and you might be like, oh, maybe I need to go drive by the house. Oh, maybe I need to check up on their social media and do a deep dive for 3 hours, right? So it can increase that obsession and then it just sends you into this spiral. So these are things that you need to be aware of when it comes to co-rumination. Because rumination's bad enough, right? But when we insert other people into that, it amplifies all of these things. Physical health impacts too, okay? So it's not just emotional, it's physiological. So repeatedly reliving distress, right? You're going through this in your mind, your hormones are like going to be out of whack. The stress hormones. You're not going to be sleeping as well. You'll probably have digestive issues. You might have headaches or muscle tension, really tired and depressed, can't get out of bed. This nervous system dysregulation is coming from rumination and co-rumination because the mind impacts the body, and whatever your mind is thinking and believing on repeat, it thinks is real. It doesn't know the difference. So things like this can really impact your body as well as your mind. So even if the body is physically safe, the brain and body can keep responding as if the threat is still happening now. So every rehash session, every vent session can become another activating event in your mind. So your body does not always know the difference between something happening now and something that you're just reliving in your mind. That's the problem. Okay? So the reticular activating system, for those of you who've never heard of this, is a bundle of nerves at the base of your brain. And it filters out all the things that are not important for you because you're getting billions of bits of information in every single day. So you'll just keep seeing what you keep feeding it. And it's a filter, okay? I'll call it the RAS for short. RAS is the brain's filter. It helps decide what gets your attention. So when you repeatedly focus on betrayal, disrespect, your abandonment wounds, rejection, unfairness, pain, threat, like all this stuff, your brain starts prioritizing those things because that's what your RAS is meant for. It's meant to do that. So what you focus on, when you've heard this before, what you focus on persists. And that is true. And it's because of your brain. It's not just some woo theory. It's literally because your brain is filtering out what you've told it is not important and focusing on what is important. So then what happens? You notice more evidence of people treating you bad. You're noticing more triggers. You're noticing more patterns. You're noticing more reasons to get upset or more examples to confirm the story that you've already told your mind. So this does not mean that the pain isn't real. It means that your mind is trained to reorganize the reality around whatever you are repeatedly rehearsing. Let me say that again. Your mind gets trained to reorganize the reality around whatever you repeatedly rehearse. Okay? Your mind becomes biased toward whatever you are emphasizing emotionally over and over and over again. It says, well, this is important, so I have to do this. I have to focus on this. My person, like, so I'm thinking like as if your brain is speaking to you. My person keeps thinking about this, so I need to make this automatic. This is important. It's emotionally emphasized. It's being repeated continually. She's talking about it to all of her friends. She's posting about it. She's thinking about it constantly. This must be really, really important. So let me automate it for her. So that's why co-rumination doesn't just keep the pain alive. It actually it recruits your brain to help continue it. It's like, here, be on my team. Help me continue this. Help me think more thoughts like this. Help me make this more of my reality. So the good news is you can change this. You can change the programming in your mind. But part of this is you're going to have to stop the co-ruminating, right? And then get a handle on your own ruminating. So I do talk about this in my upcoming book, which I'm so excited about. It's called Hack Your Mind, Heal Your Heart. It comes out on April 21st of 2026. And the part that there's a whole section in the book about ruminating and all of this, but your mind is always learning from repetition. It's always adapting to what you rehearse. So what you return to over and over and over again is going to be where the focus is, which means that healing is not just about what happened to you from the past. It's about what your mind learned to keep doing after that abuse was even over. So I want to read you a section from my book to help you understand this. Okay, so this is from chapter 13 called Breaking the Loop of my new book. And what I wrote was, the change I experienced had been happening over time as I practiced the very tools you're learning now, interrupting loops and creating enough safety in my body for something. If you've been listening to this podcast and something in you keeps nodding along week after week, well, that's not random. It's your intuition nudging you that there's something deeper here for you. I offer a free root cause call to help you uncover what's really behind your subconscious patterns, the self-doubt, the overthinking, the emotional pain that really never lets go. And in this private one-on-one call, I help you get clarity on the real reason that you're stuck and what your next best steps forward could look like, whether that's with me or another path that fits you better. So if my episodes speak to your soul, there's probably a reason. Follow the nudge, and you can schedule your free root cause call with me in the show notes. And now we'll get back to your episode. New to register. Eventually, those small internal shifts accumulated until my nervous system finally understood the sound of the garage door no longer signaled danger. Because previous to that part, I talked about how every time the garage door would open, I would get this like panic feeling because of my ex-husband coming home from work and me having to deal with all of the, chaos and aftermath from that. And then I wrote, healing often reveals itself in the moments you overlook. It's the times where you realize you responded differently without even thinking about it. Those are the moments when the past pain starts to ease up and the future begins to reshape itself into relief. Okay, so I wanted to share that with you because I think it's really important to know that you don't have to continue this way. You don't have to keep your brain on this loop. And that's why I wrote this book too, because I want you to have the tools to be able to make the changes. You're here listening to this podcast every week, and I commend you for that. This book is going to take it further for you, deeper for you, and there's even an integration experience that you can purchase to do a lot of like the embodiment and practice what you're learning from the book if you want. Okay, so let's finish through this. Why co-rumination halts your healing. This is going to be important to understand. You are keeping the wound open in co-rumination. You're revisiting, you're reactivating, and retelling instead of integrating into your healing. Okay, so you're essentially like picking a scab on your arm that you had, right? That's like co-rumination. And then somebody else comes along and picks it for you, right? We're all picking each other's wounds. That's what co-rumination does. It is not productive. It does not integrate your healing. It reinforces the negative. It also can create a sense of movement. This is what rumination does. Like rumination feels productive for people. So co-rumination also can feel productive, right? You might think, well, I'm talking about, at least I'm getting my feelings out. At least I'm processing, quote unquote, right? But talking about something is not the same as changing. Talking about something does not change your behavior. It might give you insights and awareness, which I also talk about in my book, is number one and important, but it's not going to make the changes for you. Being aware of your patterns, being aware of your habits, being aware that you're co-ruminating, cool, great, good for you, but that's not going to change anything. Change happens through consistency, courage, those kinds of things, okay? Being willing to do that and taking action, okay? It can also delay responsibility for, okay, how do I say this? For internal interruption in your own mind, okay? So how can I make this make sense? The brain gets used to external soothing with others rather than internal regulation. So there is something called co-regulation, right? Where if you're with a therapist or coach, a friend, a trusted, safe partner, right? And you need to help regulate yourself, and that safe person does that for you, okay? That's actually a really good and healthy thing. We should strive to have that sometimes. But if you're always co-regulating with other people, then you aren't going to be able to regulate on your own. And it's the same with co-rumination, right? It starts to lean into that same territory that if you are always ruminating with other people, then you will always feel like that's how you've got to get your soothing. You won't be able to find soothing on your own. Goes back to that addiction cycle because it gives you relief. It can also keep you in analysis mode and think in like okay, we're ruminating, right? Which is overthinking, thinking, and analyzing. We're just going to keep you doing more of that instead of like making changes. So you're trying to understand or trying to explain, dissect, maybe prove something, right? Or just explain it. But your nervous system's still dysregulated, and the subconscious patterns that are underneath are not changing. They're the same. And the reason that I'm telling you this is because if the subconscious patterns aren't changing, then nothing is changing, because the subconscious mind is driving everything, 95% of your reality. How you feel, how you behave, how you show up, all of that. So, if you're just analyzing everything, trying to understand, explain it, and all of that, well, nothing's really changing in your subconscious mind. And that's part of my book also, like Hack Your Mind. That's the, part of the title, Hack Your Mind, Heal Your Heart, because we're getting to the subconscious mind to understand what your patterns are so you can start to change them. Nothing changes unless you change at the subconscious level. The other thing is it actually can, it halts your healing because it doesn't allow your emotions to come full circle. Okay, so what I mean by this is like, maybe when you're done talking about it, you feel more angry. Maybe you feel more sadness. Maybe you feel more confusion. Maybe it's like, holy crap, I can't believe that. Like, seeing other people's expressions on their faces makes you think, oh my gosh, can you believe that actually happened? It doesn't give you closure. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't give you a new direction at all. It's just often, re-emphasizing what's been happening or what was so bad about it, and doesn't allow you to push through the emotions, right? It's like keeping the emotional pot of water on simmer instead of just letting it boil over and turning it off, right? So a lot of people are not processing their pain in co-rumination. They're just continuing it and, holding on to that pain in conversations. Okay, now I want to shift to when therapy or coaching turns into co-rumination. And I really feel like this is a needed conversation because, even weekly therapy or coaching with like a life coach or a support person can turn into co-rumination if the relationship or the container that you're in isn't structured well. And if you're paying someone to support you, like, you got to know this, because you're going to have to put some, boundaries in place or things like that if you find that that's happening. Because a therapist or a coach even can accidentally, not on purpose, they're not doing this like to hurt anybody. They can actually reinforce these loops accidentally if they just let you tell the same story in detail week after week, and they don't put you on pause or ask you questions or redirect. Or if they keep validating the pain without helping create any movement, right? They're just validating you every single time, right? If they are only focusing on how you feel but not how to change or transformation. If they're following you into every detail of your story without, redirecting you or saying, hey, hold on, let's pause here, let's, or whatever, right? If they're not helping you challenge your thought loops, or if they don't help you identify your patterns or your subconscious beliefs or next steps or what to do, or if they're, allowing you to confuse this like emotional intensity with progress, like if you had like a really emotional session and they're like, wow, this is like, it's not. You need to know that, okay? And this is not to trash anybody. This is just to give you awareness so that so you don't waste your money, so you don't waste your healing time, okay? Because feeling seen matters. Being heard matters. Having that space does matter. None of this is a bad thing, okay? But if session after session with somebody, you're feeling more activated than when you came in, you're feeling more attached to your story, you're feeling more stuck to proving what happened or dependent on that session just to unload or vent with no tools, no boundaries, no interruptions, no shifts, right? Then maybe that's not healing. That could just be co-rumination with a license on the wall or a certificate, right? So how do you tell if the therapist or coach is slipping into co-rumination with you? Okay, this is really, really helpful. So you want to watch for these signs and maybe write these down if you have your pen and paper. So if you keep telling the same story in detail every session, right? Each week, same monologue, same emotional ending, everything's the same. Same details, same experiences, right? Number 2, if your therapist isn't interrupting the loop, they let you spiral without regulating you, giving you tools, redirecting, trying to help you unpack it. If the session feels really helpful or relieving in the moment, but then nothing changes in your life. Like, oh, I feel really great after my session, and then you crash, same cycle, back into the same loops. 4, let's say there's a lot of validation. They're very, very kind, very supportive, very validating, but you're not moving forward. You hear, oh, that makes sense, or that sounds really hard, but you never get led into how to change it, right? Or if they're reinforcing fixation, what this means is they get really invested in every detail of the other person's behavior. Like, oh, tell me more about what your ex did, or oh, tell me why they did this, or blah, 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 rather than help you shift your own internal experience. And I've heard people talk about this, how their therapist will just want to know. It's like drama, they get really interested in the drama of the story. Okay? Not everyone does this. I'm just saying I need you to be aware of it so that you can do something about it. If you leave more dysregulated than when you met with them. And sometimes hard sessions happen. Like it happens in my calls too. But the person that you're working with should be able to help you get regulated. Okay? And if this is the norm, right? Occasionally if that happens, that makes sense. But if this is the norm and there's no integration, that's a red flag. And lastly, if there's no focus on beliefs, your nervous system, action, boundaries, anything like that, that's another sign, right? Because these things are really important. If you're just revisiting events over and over again, like pain book club, oh, let me just talk about what happened in my life, and let me just tell you all these horrible things, and let me just, no, right? That's not helping you heal, okay? So healthy support looks like this. If somebody is supporting you and they say, I hear you, or ask you, what do you need? If they ask specifically, do you want comfort? Do you want to vent? Do you want clarity? Do you want tools? That's amazing, right? Maybe if somebody says to you like, oh, we've talked about that before. Is there some part of this that doesn't feel finished or that we need to like unpack, right? Because they're noticing that you're coming in ruminating about it with them. So they will, a good support person will step in and say, yeah, we did mention that you did talk about that before. So how can we move you past this? Or what support do you need to get through to the next stage, right? What belief is getting activated? That's a really great question. If somebody asks you that, that's really good. So like, what belief are you experiencing right now? What do you believe about that? Or what do you think about that? That's an indication that somebody's getting into your mind to help you. Okay, not just like, oh, what happened or how awful they were to you or this or that you experienced that was so traumatic, right? That's not the healing stuff. The healing stuff is getting into you, your mind, your belief systems, your nervous system, and helping you move forward. Okay? So healthy support will validate your pain without having to feed that loop. So, oh wow, it's really tough. I'm so sorry. Like that's important. Like every support person should be doing that. But they should not be feeding the loop and diving into co-ruminating with you and allowing it to continue. And some people will even share too much of their own personal stories. And this is a really, really big red flag. It's fine occasionally and I do this with my clients too, to relate to someone's experience. I've experienced that too. I know exactly how that feels. My ex did the same thing, right? I will say those kinds of things. I even will sometimes bring up stories of clients and tell like, oh, I had a client who went through this exact same thing. But it doesn't stop there. It's like, okay, so what can we do with this and how do we need to shift it? Okay, because my goal is to move you forward. I don't want to be in loops with anybody. I don't want to be on a merry-go-round or a hamster wheel or any of that. I want progress, not perfection, but progress, okay? Okay, so just as a reminder, knowing why you hurt or why someone did something to you is not the same thing as changing the pattern that keeps recreating that pain, okay? So, and this is one of the main reasons that I wrote my new book, Hack Your Mind, Heal Your Heart, because I want to help people stop living in this endless awareness without transformation. You get stuck in these loops and like, how do you get off the hamster wheel? And that's why I wrote this book. So how do you stop co-ruminating? This is an actionable piece of this podcast. Step number 1 is you need to notice what your goal is before you start talking, okay? Or before you ask someone to meet with you, knowing in your mind you want to talk about it. Like, do I want comfort? Do I want to vent? Do I want clarity? Do I want a solution? Am I asking this person for permission? Or maybe I'm just craving connection. Or maybe I'm just avoiding being alone with my own feelings and I want somebody else to share with, okay? Because sometimes you're not seeking healing. Sometimes you're seeking regulation through other people. But that awareness matters. Awareness is important, okay? You can't fix something if you don't know it's a problem. Okay, so the whole purpose of this step is to just notice, what do I want here? What is my goal? What is my intention when I want to talk about it? Okay, step number 2, put a time limit on your venting. Okay, you do not need 90 minutes of pain rehashing. What is that actually going to do? You think it feels good in the moment, but it's actually doing all those other negative things I said earlier. So 10 minutes. Put a time limit on it. 10 minutes to name what happened to you. 10 minutes. I mean, you can even do this if you have a therapy session or with your coach, right? If you want to talk about something, I need to get this off my chest. Just tell them, I need to get this off my chest, and then I want to move into taking action, moving forward, and making changes. Okay? 10 minutes identifying the pattern, 10 minutes deciding what's actually going to be most helpful here. Because structure is going to help move you forward. Okay, it will interrupt the loop because I'm not going to sit here in a session for an hour with my friend or my therapist or my coach and rehash my pain. I'm going to spend 10 minutes or 15 minutes on it, and the rest of the time, problem solving mode. Let's get to the root of this and let's make some changes. Okay, I'm all about action, people. Like, I give my clients homework. I, am constantly thinking about them all day long, all night long. When I'm lying in bed, I'm like, okay, what's the root of this? I'm trying to help them. And then I get these epiphanies and then I send them questions. Like, I love my job so much. Okay. Step number 3, stop retelling the full story. You don't need to narrate the whole story every single time. Okay. Instead of, oh, let me tell you like this or that. And sometimes like it's not just about telling the whole story from like beginning to end, like a book. It might just be like, oh, this one thing happened, and you pull out a page and you're like, I got to tell this. I remembered this. Because sometimes we don't have like access to those memories, and then something will trigger it and we're like, oh my gosh, like that just happened to me recently. I couldn't even believe it. It didn't hit like it would have years ago because of the work that I've done to heal my mind and my heart. But it was something I noticed, like, wow, that was something that was stuck in the recesses of my brain that I'd never really remembered until something triggered it. So instead of like, let me tell you everything that happened in my life, right? Try instead to just tell whoever you're talking to that the wound is coming up again, or some pain or some emotions, or maybe you could say like, I'm feeling really activated right now in this moment. I just need somebody to help me stay grounded. Can you just help me ground back into the moment? And this shifts you out of like the pressure of needing to like retell the whole story, because you don't really need to tell the whole story. You need to be regulated. You need to be grounded. And telling the full story isn't going to do that for you. In many cases, it's just going to make it worse. Okay, the 4th step is choose to talk to people who don't feed the loop. Some people love to do this. They love mutual ruminating and mutual spiraling because it creates intensity and closeness. So you might have that one friend or your mom or your sister or whoever it is that as soon as you call them, they're going to dive right into it with you. Okay? So pick people who will maybe challenge you a little bit, who will redirect you, who will validate you, but help you stay grounded. And you know who these people are because they're probably not the first on your list to call. Okay? Number 5 is to build boundaries around these conversations that become repetitive. So you might not need to have some like hip pocket responses, like, I don't want to keep rehashing this, or I need support, but I really just don't want to spiral. Or maybe you go back to the 10-minute thing and say like, hey, can we just talk about this for 10 minutes and then just like talk about you and your life or something different? And then you could even ask someone who you love and trust, if I start repeating myself, interrupt me. And I'll tell you this, for a lot of my clients, when we first meet, I tell them because we're on a Zoom, right? So if I put my hand up like a stop, I'm doing that because I know that you're going into like conscious brain activity, ruminating and reliving the past. And so if I put my hand up, it's just a gentle nudge to pull you back so that we don't get into that territory, because no changes are going to be made there. It's like, it's not that I don't want to hear your story, or it's not that I don't think that what you're saying is important. It's that I know that you're not going to heal that way. So my job is to help you heal. And so I'm going to put my hand up and I'm going to make that indication to help you. Okay. The next one that I feel like is really powerful is shifting out of the story into the pattern. So what I mean by this is, ask yourself some questions. What is causing me to feel this way right now? What is activating inside of me? You could ask yourself, like, what am I afraid this means if I don't tell my story? Or what belief could I be thinking right now that is driving this need? So it might be something like, if I tell people my story, then they'll be able to see how horrible the abuse was. It could be, people need to hear me. People need to know that I wasn't the problem, right? So this is the deep work that we do. And once you start uncovering these things, it's like your brain's like just brain explosion. But instead of telling the story, just start asking yourself questions like, why do I feel the need to do this? What is the belief underneath this? What am I afraid this might mean? What am I trying to get from this? Okay, so just ask yourself some questions. So instead of like immediately diving into the story, ask yourself, because it's probably a pattern that's keep coming up. I talk about patterns in my book as well. Okay, so the other part that I feel like has to be included here is the body, because yes, we're working with the mind, but your body, your whole nervous system is part of your body. So we have to interrupt the body, not just the thought, because this is not just mental work. And again, there's a whole chapter in my new book about this too. So movement, if you like breath work, if you want to stick your hands in cold water, if you want to do grounding and go outside and take your socks and shoes off and walk on the grass or the dirt, tapping is great. If you've not heard of tapping, I would encourage you to look that up. It can be really, really helpful to get back into your body. Some people do like bilateral stimulation with sound or with their eye movement. Journaling, somatic exercises, which I love. And here's another one, silence instead of more talking. Just being present with yourself in your body. Do like a body scan, check every area of your body and see where you're feeling pressure, pain, tingling, sensations, things like that. Because sometimes what you need isn't just a conversation, it's just you need to interrupt your nervous system. Okay, this is the last one, is to replace validation addiction with self-trust. Now this one's big because a lot of people co-ruminate because they do not trust their own perception. Rightly so, because you've been gaslit, you've been invalidated, you've been made to believe that you were crazy or stupid or whatever, right? So you don't trust yourself. So you might keep going back to get confirmation from other people, like, is this right, or should I do this, or I'm not sure, and is he bad, or maybe I'm just making too big a deal of it, right? Maybe you're looking for agreement from others, proof, they're saying, oh no, my ex did the same thing, or blah 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 blah, you're not wrong, right? Permission to feel what they feel. Like, is this okay? Should I feel bad about this, or should I feel happy about this? Whatever it is, okay? So replacing that validation addiction, trusting yourself. So the ways that you could do this is to shift your beliefs about needing this validation that you would get from others by, okay, if you believe I need to relive the pain to prove it mattered. Some people believe that. I need to rehash the pain to prove that it mattered. Okay? Some people believe they can't validate themselves without reopening the wound. Right? That's another one. I'd ask you to challenge yourself with this. Like, support from somebody doesn't have to mean repeating or rehashing the trauma. Okay? That's not... Some people might think, oh, well, I have to talk about it. I have to repeat it. I have to go over all the details. That I'd encourage you to think about that a little differently, because talking more is not always healing more. Talking more can actually just reinforce the bad stuff and keep you stuck. Okay? And maybe give yourself some permission to move forward, even if you don't have closure, or if the story is unfinished, or something like that, because sometimes people feel like I need to, figure out all the answers. I need to know what happened. I need to know why, right? Or I can't move forward. Okay, so this is where we're like, you have to trust yourself. You have to dig into your own mind and your own beliefs and figure these things out. This is not for the weak. This is, intense work, but it's so worth it. It's so worth it, because on the other side, you're like a totally different person. I don't recognize the person that I used to be years ago. I don't. I'm like, who is that person? Like, it's just really, it's kind of surreal. And then maybe, like, if you believe that peace matters, right? That peace is more important than proving what you went through or what happened to you. Because some people believe, like, I need people to know, I need to prove it, right? And I would encourage you, these are things that we have to shift. And if your mind's like, ew, but yes, I do need to, that's where I come in. That's where I help people. And this gives you the relief that you've been craving and looking for. And if there's resistance to it, we unpack that, we go through it. That's why I have two programs. I have a 4-month program, and I also have a year-long program that people can enroll in. And there's a reason for that, because within that 4-month program, you're going to get some massive shifts. You're going to make some huge changes. And if you want to continue the deeper work, you can continue on for a full year. Okay, so let's talk briefly before we wrap up, some questions to help you self-assess. So come back here, and we're about 47 minutes in. You can write these down or come back to it. But here's a set of questions I think is going to be really powerful to help you. Number 1 is, am I processing this or practicing it? And here's what I mean by that. A lot of times we're like, oh, I'm just processing my emotions. I'm getting out. Is that true, or are you practicing it? Are you practicing the pain? Are you practicing living through those old stories? That's the question. Number 2, do I feel clearer after talking, or do I feel more stirred? Or are my emotions like stirred up? Number 3, am I getting insight or just reinforcing emotion? Now, again, we need to look at, like, if you find that you're in co-rumination with others, are you gaining insight, or are you just reinforcing emotion? Because I think a lot of times when my clients come to me and, they're struggling with something and we're talking through it, they're getting insight, right? We're not reinforcing the negative emotions, because I'm asking them questions. I'm saying, well, what are you believing when, or what would you need to believe if, or, what are you gaining from holding on to this feeling? Like, these are the things that I do to help my clients, right? So they're getting insight. We're not just reinforcing these things. We're not just rehashing emotions and stirring up old wounds. I don't want to do that. Is this conversation helping me move forward or making me relive it? Understand that. The next question is, am I seeking support or am I seeking repeated permission just to stay in this loop? And if you're doing it, there's a reason why, okay? So there's no shame in that. There's a reason why you want to keep doing it, not just because you're in that addiction cycle to co-ruminating, but because your brain is really wanting to protect you, and you need to figure out what it is that it's needing to protect. And then the last question is, what would healing require that venting does not? And just sit with that and ask yourself, what would healing require that venting does not? And again, this is exactly why my new book is called Hack Your Mind, Heal Your Heart, because healing is not about talking about what hurt you. It's about changing what your mind does with that hurt. I would love for you to visit my website at www.allisonkdagny.com. That's my book website with all my books on it. And you can put your email in and be notified once the book is live. So if you're interested in that, allisonkdagny.com to do that, because this book is a deeper roadmap for you, and I don't want you to miss it. All right, so if you've been co-ruminating, this is no reason to judge yourself. It actually makes a lot of sense, especially if you've been hurt by someone, abused, gaslit, dismissed, because of course, validation feels really good. Of course, being heard feels really good. But there comes a point where being heard is no longer helping you heal. It's helping you stay emotionally attached to those old wounds. So let's stop this rehearsing the pain to prove that it mattered. Let's stop reliving it to justify your healing, right? At some point, love for yourself looks like refusing to feed the loop. If I can support you on a deeper level, you can schedule a free 30-minute root cause call with me from the link in the show notes or directly on my website at www.radiateandrise.com. That's www.radiate.rise.com. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this has been helpful, and I'll talk to you next week.